Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Have you ever been in the place where you just wonder, is therapy what I should be doing right now? Or is there some other way that I could be healing? Well, if that is you, then you are in the right place. Today we're going to talk about the 4 stages of healing from complex trauma and how to know if you are in the stage where therapy is going to actually be effective for you. It is so easy to just assume like, oh, well, I have trauma, so clearly I should be in therapy, right? Wrong. Therapy is necessary for a particular point in the healing process, but not for all of it. And we need to first know what stage we're in this healing process for us to know if our therapy is actually going to be effective. Because if it's not, then we're just going to be throwing away tons of money and time, and also just emotional energy too. Now, before we begin, let me just say that we are constantly healing. There is no arriving. This is a lifelong process. So I don't want you to get stuck in this idea of like, oh, well, I have to be totally fixed. I have to be totally healed in order for me to no longer be in therapy. No. Therapy is for a specific point, and there is a time when it's no longer needed, and you can continue growing in a different way. And there's a part where you need to be doing other things first before you go into therapy. Okay, so let's talk about the 4 stages of healing from complex trauma and how to know if therapy is going to be helpful for you at this particular point in your healing journey. So as you watch this, I want you to just be paying attention. Try to see okay, what stage am I at? Where am I at in this healing process? And does that mean that I need therapy right now, or should I be doing something else? For each stage, I'm going to give you a very tangible thing you can do to make sure that you're focusing on the right thing at this stage of your healing process. Okay? So let's dive right in. The first stage is education. This is all about building self-awareness and really knowing ourselves. So many people go into therapy prematurely, and I think a big reason for this is because we just assume having trauma equals go to therapy. But the reality is that this person who goes into the therapy prematurely, they probably know that something's wrong, but they haven't yet gotten the clarity around how their trauma formed them and the barriers within themselves that are keeping them from doing the healing. So they come into therapy and they have all this resistance, and it's probably not even something they're choosing to resist, but there are barriers within themselves that they haven't yet worked through. Or they're just focusing on the wrong issue because they haven't yet developed the awareness to know what actually needs the healing. And so, yes, you could spend time in therapy trying to figure out what those things are, but how amazing would it be if you've already done that work and then you go into therapy focusing on the right issue and doing the real therapeutic work? So, knowledge is power. Right? We hear this all the time, and it is so true. We can't change something that we know nothing about. We have to know how we were formed and what needs were not met for us. We need to learn the skills that were never modeled for us as children. We need to understand our survival skills, love them, thank them, and then we need to reorient them so that they can help us live a healthier, more whole and thriving life. So, can you do this in therapy? Yes, technically you can do this work in therapy, and I have done it with many of my clients, but I wouldn't recommend it. It typically takes clients a minimum of 6 months to really gain this understanding. And a large part of this is because we're working through the resistance, we're working through all the distractions of other things that we want to blame our anxiety on, and it's hard to really focus in and just absorb this information and really do this exploratory work. So yes, you could do this in therapy, but you're going to spend a lot of time and money doing it. And the reality is you could do this outside of therapy. And the truth is, this isn't even the therapeutic work. This is the necessary foundation to doing the therapeutic work. So my recommendation would be to gain this awareness before going into therapy so that you can focus on the right issue, already break through some of those barriers that are going to bring some resistance to the process, and set yourself up to really be able to take off and have some big wins in the healing process with your therapist. Okay, so you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, Christy, yeah, ideally, I'd love to do this self-awareness work before going into therapy, but how do I learn these things if I don't even know what to look for? So if you are in this stage of the healing process, I would recommend that you start here. Go down below and download my free guide where I'm going to walk you through how to know the effects of childhood trauma and what that's had on you, and then also to start breaking through some of the barriers that are coming up in your ability to heal. I also have a list of my favorite go-to books that you could read, or if you're like me, listen to, that will really give you so much valuable content to dig deep and start doing this self-awareness work. So it's completely free. Go ahead and you can download it right below, and that will be an amazing starting point if you're finding yourself at this stage in the healing process. Okay, so we're on to the second stage, and the second stage is about safety and stabilization. This is where you begin to recover your nervous system from the chronic dysregulation that it's been experiencing. This will include physical, relational, emotional safety that you're building into your life. So this can only happen if you've already done a deep dive into knowing what safety actually means for you in specific. What kinds of people are safe or unsafe for you based on your triggers, your relational needs, your upbringing. Okay, so that self-awareness work in stage 1 has to come before this. To effectively build safety into your life, you have to do thorough work in that self-awareness stage so that you know what you need and you can respond to yourself to make yourself feel safe. If you have complex trauma, chances are that your relationships are a huge source of triggers for you. And if you're going to actually teach your nervous system that it's safe, you have to actually first be safe. So in this stage 2, what you're doing is you're learning how to build this circle of safety in your life. You surround yourself with safe people, and you develop boundaries with people who do not feel particularly safe to you. So this is where you learn the tools to help you take back your power and no longer feel like you are at the mercy of others for your sense of safety. You get to be your own gatekeeper. Again, knowledge is power. At this stage, you have knowledge, which means you have choices. And choices mean having the power to usher yourself into a life that feels safe and stable for you. Okay, so here are a few things to think about as you're trying to consider if therapy is right for you at this stage. If you feel suicidal, or if you are struggling with substance issues, self-harm, or feel unstable in any way that feels completely unmanageable at this point, then I would recommend seeing a therapist so that you can get that professional help of really being able to regulate and ground yourself when triggers come up. Another low-cost resource that could be really helpful at this stage is to join a DBT skills group where you can learn a lot of these regulation skills and be able to manage the big waves of anxiety or depression that come over you throughout this process. Now, that being said, as long as your triggering moments feel manageable for you, you can do this work outside of therapy. So if you are in this stage and your triggers feel manageable, and you would like some support in knowing where to start with setting boundaries and surrounding yourself with safe people, then I would encourage you to go below and download this free guide called Empowered Responses. And in this, I break down how to know if somebody feels emotionally safe or unsafe for you, and specific tools for being able to set boundaries and communicate effectively in a way that keeps you safe. Okay, so the third stage is reprocessing. This is probably the stage that you hear about the most when it comes to trauma healing, and this is the stage that is most important to do in therapy. So this stage is going to involve accepting and recognizing what happened to you was not your fault and that it does not define you. It's also going to involve challenging your limiting beliefs and letting go of shame, managing your symptoms, and reprocessing and reconsolidating those old memories, both your implicit memories and your explicit memories. I remember hearing this quote once, and it just really stuck with me, and I think it applies here. It was something to the effect of, that which we do not enter, we cannot heal. And so we have to let ourselves go back in and feel again. Some techniques that your therapist might use that will be incredibly helpful at this stage in the healing process might be IFS, EMDR, somatic experiencing. This is the work you want to do with a therapist, okay? The healing relationship is the most impactful part of the reprocessing and the healing work. And working through the grief and releasing your shame and working through those limiting beliefs with a safe, loving person is going to heal that trauma. Again, we need to enter into that which we want to heal. So we need to actually go back into the parts of our brain that have been wired to experience relationships and especially vulnerability with people in our lives as unsafe, and to now put a new experience there. And this is where the therapist comes in. They get to be that safe person who gives you that fresh experience of what it's like to feel seen, honored, and respected, to feel held in the midst of vulnerability. If you have done the self-awareness work and you have built that circle of safety into your life, and you are ready to actually process your trauma and to do some really deep healing work, then I would encourage you to reach out to a therapist. This is the moment for you to be in therapy. I would really encourage you to do a consultation call with the therapist that you're looking to work with, and just kind of notice, how does your body feel as you're talking to them? Do you feel this sense of ease? Do you feel open-hearted? Do you feel seen and heard by them? Okay, these are way more important than any modality they're going to use, because the relationship is the primary healing aspect. Okay, so now for the fourth and the final stage, and this is the fun one. This is the integration stage. This is where you get to reconnect with yourself and find the you that has been buried beneath all that trauma. This is where you get to redefine and rediscover who you are and find a sense of purpose in your life. You get to learn how to lean on loving, safe people for support, and you begin to see yourself not only as a survivor, but as somebody who is thriving and feels whole despite all that they've been through. So for some of my clients, this has looked like they eventually, ended therapy and they went and they led their own support groups. This could look like mentoring other people on the healing journey, or just finally beginning to do the things that you've always wanted to do because you finally have space for joy in your life. So if you're finding yourself in therapy and you're this trigger came up, but I was able to manage it relatively quickly and it didn't take over my day, then you might be ready for this stage. Again, we never arrive. You might still have triggers, but it doesn't mean that you have to be in therapy or that you're not healed enough to move on to the next stage. So if you find yourself no longer spending your emotional and mental energy on your trauma, but instead you find that you just feel open-hearted and at ease and just confident in your ability to navigate life, then you're probably in stage 4 and you're ready to discontinue therapy and open the door to this whole other chapter in your life. So this is where things get really exciting, right? Like, it's the point where your trauma becomes transformed into a gift for yourself and others. You can see how the survival skills you learned, when they're reoriented, they're now some of the most beautiful parts of you, and they're gifts to the people around you. If you were at this stage, I want to encourage you to free yourself to explore. Trust yourself and see what you find. There is so much more goodness in you than you know at this moment right now. And it's time to discover what's beneath it all. Trust me, I think that you will love what you find. So we just walked through a whole lot, and I hope that this gave you some clarity of what you need at this stage in your healing process. If you're like, gosh, like I am so ready to dive deep into this, and I want to heal and experience the most I can get out of my therapy sessions, then I'd encourage you to follow the link below and register for the course Love After Complex Trauma. This is where I hold your hand through the whole first 2 stages so that you can go into therapy actually ready to experience huge wins. So thank you everyone for watching. As always, I am cheering for you, and I am so excited to see where this journey takes you.